Welcome back to Weekend AM. Now, since becoming CEO of Ryanair in 1994, Michael O'Leary has been one of the most fascinating and controversial characters in Irish business, completely changing the face of air travel and turning a small Irish airline into one of the biggest in the world, while simultaneously becoming a hugely divisive figure at home and abroad.
Which is precisely why our next guest, author and broadcaster Matt Cooper, has decided to write a biography on the ultra-successful Mullingar man who has already drawn his ire. Matt, you're very welcome.
Morning,
Thank
Matt.
you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. Controversy doing the book no harm, I'm sure. Tell us about, first of all, the reason you decided to write this book, because obviously you'd interviewed the man several times.
Many times I've dealt with him on the radio or for print interviews over the years, although he's been slightly more reticent in recent years and decided not to cooperate with the book, which in many respects was good, because I just wanted to get as really an honest an appraisal of the man as possible.
Did you expect him to cooperate with the book?
I asked him to cooperate. He wrote back to me and said that no, he didn't want to do interviews for it, but wished me luck with it. I mean, despite the fact that he put out a statement this week saying that he had asked me not to do the book for the sake of his privacy and for his family, that's not the case, and I have a letter from him which shows the opposite in relation to that.
Wishing you well, but
yeah, well, you know, he wasn't
politely declining.
Yeah, he wasn't going to get involved, but he said there was plenty of material in the public domain and there were plenty of people that I could interview and whatever. So anyway, but the reason I did it, I think, is he is the most interesting businessman, I think, to emerge in this country in the last half century, and arguably the most successful. I mean, we love giving out about Ryanair, but Ryanair has transformed air travel throughout Europe, not just for Irish people, but from people from here as far as Poland, all the countries in between. It is possibly the most successful Irish invention since Guinness over 250 years ago.
I remember doing a documentary series years ago with Archie called Chain Reactions, where we looked at Southwest Airlines in the US, which was pretty much, they went over and found out how they did it, and the fact that it's built into this giant global corporation. When you're tackling a subject like him, where do you start? Where does the book start? Are we going back to the start of his beginnings?
It is the full story of Michael O'Leary. It's a biography of him, a biography of Ryanair as well. But I decided to start it basically a year ago, 2017, when a bit of a crisis hit Ryanair. Do you remember when they had to cancel many flights? With 700,000 passengers were affected, and this was a major problem.
This was a disaster.
It was, and they simply didn't have enough pilots. But that set off a set of chain reactions as well. By Christmas, with the pilots and the cabin crew realising that now he was under pressure, they actually threatened a whole lot of strikes for Christmas, and he couldn't take another strike, the cancellation of more flights, for brand reputation, because of the costs that would be involved and lost revenue and compensation to passengers. So he gave in, and you mentioned Southwest. One thing Southwest always did was have very good relationships with its unions. That's the bit Michael O'Leary did not bring back. Michael O'Leary has a passionate dislike, indeed you could almost say hatred for the trade union movement.
Does that come through in the book?
It's
a long-standing thing.
It's all about that they reduce his flexibility to do things he wants. He believes that they add costs. And that actually is a very relevant point to know, because it is estimated that the cost of giving better deals to pilots and cabin crew as a result of the union negotiations since last Christmas, €100 million per annum is going to be added to the costs of Ryanair, and obviously taken from profits.
And as well as the cost, Matt, you'd have to give him the credit when it comes to the unions and say they slow things down an awful lot as well.
Well, that would be his belief. He has opened new routes at an incredible speed, that if you had to negotiate with the trade unions, they would say, oh no, we need that many people here and that people there. He just goes ahead and does it. And also he closes. I mean, it's quite extraordinary in the development of Ryanair. If you open a route and they find it's not making the money almost immediately, they are ruthless in actually cutting it down. But this is one of the most fascinating things about O'Leary, and there's all the stories in there about the remarkable stunts and the publicity that he gets. But there's so many remarkable things about him as a businessman, about the way that he bucks convention. He doesn't do things the way that everyone else tells you in the MBA courses, whatever, this is the way to run a business. And that actually has been to his enormous credit. He has bought aircraft at a time, made enormous deals to buy aircraft, for example, after 9/11. or when you're in the middle of recession, he takes a big bet looking out to the future.
But that's what these guys see. They always see opportunity.
Yeah.
In places where other people wouldn't even know where to look.
And he gets the credit for all of that in the book because, you know, I know people say, oh, is this a knocking book? It's not actually. This is a fair appraisal of one of the most remarkable people who has done one of the most remarkable business careers imaginable.
And what would you say, Matt, because you've spoken to people who work for him and used to work for him and don't anymore?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people stay with him for a very long time. They put up with it because
and there's gigantic loyalty towards him, isn't
absolutely.
there?
But even though the fact that he can be very hard going, he's always go, go, go all the time. There have been other people who have lasted 6 and 8 weeks in senior management positions, who come in, who look at it and go, oh my God, I can't actually deal with the intensity and the ferocity of all that goes on, and they have gone. And then, you know, has changed over the years. There may be people who've lasted 10 or 15 years with him who've moved on to other things because they have wanted other ambitions that they want to sate. Yeah. But it is fascinating that there's sort of the dynamism that he actually has. Some of the stuff you see in his public performances, some of that is just for the cameras. It's a bit of show.
He is
some
flamboyant.
of it's actually, but some of it is actually real in the sense as well. Those are his beliefs. That's what he pounds away at when he works with his management. But sometimes you never know quite really where you are, and that can be to his advantage as well when people are trying to
ask you that because, as you said, you've interviewed him dozens and dozens of times over the years. On a one-to-one basis, on a personal level, like in terms of people who work with them and yourself, like what is he like as a man?
He could be a person who could be extremely generous. I've seen him with people and situations be extremely chivalrous and generous. He can also be exceptionally tight. He hates spending money. And that has been some people as well who've worked with him have sort of been shocked at times at how difficult it could be to get a pay rise out of him or whatever. He just does not like spending money. It can be difficult to get a pen
apparently in the office, never mind a pay rise.
Oh, well, that was
Weren't they famously out there for the stationery that you had to bring in as an employee?
Well, yeah, there was a station in the old offices before they moved to their new offices in Swords in Dublin Airport. There was a special room in which all sorts of stationery had been purchased in job lots from liquidations and stuff, so it might have other company names and stuff on it, but it was bought cheap and you had to sign in for it, whatever. At one stage, he actually started charging people there was a cost for it. You were not allowed to charge your mobile phone because he'd worked out the cost.
You're using his electricity.
Exactly. And I don't think that was just the stunt. That actually was something.
There are moments like that where, do we admire that? I mean, he is a businessman and he's running a very lean organisation that a lot of companies are trying to replicate.
Yeah, and his argument would be that that's what delivers lower fares.
Yeah.
And that's what punters want. And this comes back to something I should have said earlier. I mean, again, one of the other things where he bucked convention is the places where he decided to fly to. Everybody would say is if you want to fly to Rome or whatever, you don't want to end up, say, 40 miles away from Rome. But yet, by going to places outside of the normal busy airports, you could get much cheaper prices. And his argument was you get your baggage a lot faster off the carousel and you get into where you're trying to go an awful lot faster. And people have bought it. 130 million people a year fly Ryanair.
Yeah. As you say, it delivers lower fares, but it also, that methodology delivers huge profits for the airline.
Yes.
And as a result, to him.
Yeah, 1.4 billion in a year at present. God. So he is a billionaire now as a result of it. He has a 4% shareholding in Ryanair, which is worth, 600-700 million at the moment. But he has taken a lot of money out over the years. He's taken a lot of cash to selling shares, and he has had substantial investments in property.
And the horses haven't done bad for me either.
No,
he's remarkable. But there is one chapter in the book as well about even the row that he had with the trainer who delivered him the treble of the Gold Cup, the Grand National, the Intrigue Grand National, the Irish Grand National in 1 year, and then he changed trainer after a row about how much it would cost to actually house the horses.
Wow.
It's a great read.
What's your one takeaway if you were to kind of summarise the man in one word?
He's unsummarisable in one word.
Unpredictable.
Yeah. He is enigmatic.
An enigma.
He is brilliant.
Yeah.
He can be very frustrating, but he is, above all things, interesting.
Yeah.
Which is why you write a book about somebody who's
of course,
really,
he's
really
a fascinating character, yeah.
It's a great read, Matt. Thanks for coming in and sharing.
Michael O'Leary is out now. Thank you, Matt. Right, we're over at the Catwalk next. Stay with us for Cosy Casuals you can't be without this autumn winter. See you in a few.